April 1945. Allendorf concentration camp, Germany. The young Korean woman had not seen sunlight in 3 months when the strange rumbling sounds approached the camp perimeter. After 942 days of captivity in the special comfort barracks, Park Soo-jin waited for the routine evening procession of German officers. Instead, American soldiers of the 6th Armored Division broke through the gates at precisely 14:38 hours. The first American she saw stood exactly 6 feet 2 inches tall, carried 247 pounds of equipment, and extended a Hershey's chocolate bar toward her trembling hands. His unexpected kindness contradicted everything the camp commandant had warned about American savagery. This moment, repeated 843 times across Europe's hidden network of comfort stations, marked the beginning of a liberation that the women had stopped believing possible. Across the Reich's collapsing territory that spring, 2,371 women from 14 nations discovered that their American liberators bore no resemblance to the beast described in Nazi propaganda. These women, officially designated as Sonderbau field auxiliaries in German documentation, had endured systematic sexual exploitation that defied international law and human dignity. The mathematics of suffering were written in daily violations of body and spirit. Some women forced to service between 15 and 30 men daily, according to military tribunal records collected from camp administrators' precise logbooks. The liberating American units discovered these women through both accident and intelligence. The U.S. Army's Counterintelligence Corps had documented evidence of comfort facilities, but failed to comprehend their true purpose until physical discovery. At Camp Mauthausen on April 23, 1945, intelligence officers of the 11th Armored Division located records indicating that 319 women had been processed through the camp's Sonderabteilung, special section, between 1943 and 1945, primarily from occupied Eastern territories. What began as confusion at discovering these segregated women's compounds evolved into horrified recognition. Military photographs from Buchenwald, dated April 16, 1945, capture the moment a U.S. Army medic encountered a barracks containing 42 emaciated women from Poland, Korea, and the Philippines who had been designated as Trostmädchen in official camp documentation. The liberators found these women's physical condition markedly different from other camp inmates. Unlike the severe starvation of standard prisoners, comfort women received calculated nutrition, exactly 1,200 calories daily, sufficient to maintain physical appeal while preventing escape. This deliberate calibration of suffering revealed the systematic nature of their exploitation. Military medical records document that 68% suffered from sexually transmitted infections, 73% from severe malnutrition, and 91% from post-traumatic symptoms that medical officers initially struggled to categorize. The women's disbelief at American kindness manifested physically. Many initially refused medical attention, anticipating further abuse. Others hid when offered food, expecting punishment. The U.S. Army's 127th Evacuation Hospital reported that comfort survivors required an average of 8.3 days before accepting that their liberation was genuine and not an elaborate punishment scenario. What American soldiers witnessed in these first encounters would fundamentally alter international understanding of wartime atrocities. The comfort women's unexpected liberation had only begun. The establishment of the comfort women system predated American involvement in the war. Japanese imperial forces instituted the first documented comfort stations in Shanghai in 1932, but the practice expanded dramatically following the Axis alliance. According to recovered military documents, Nazi Germany's Sonderbau, special building program, began systematically in September 1940, initiating with 23 facilities across occupied territories. By 1942, German military administration had catalogued 79 official comfort stations servicing various branches of the Wehrmacht, SS, and supporting personnel. The organizational precision extended to designated room numbers, scheduled intervals, and weekly health inspections documented in official military health records. Recruitment methods employed specific deception protocols tailored to each occupied region. Polish women received false employment documents as factory workers, earning alleged wages of 300 Reichsmarks monthly. Korean women, transported through Japanese-controlled territories, faced direct abduction with falsified military requisition papers designating them as special volunteers. Philippine women received promises of nursing positions paying 175 Reichsmarks, plus housing and meals. Military transport records show that 43% of these women travelled in sealed train cars marked for special equipment, while 37% moved through medical evacuation channels under sedation. The remaining 20% arrived through civilian railways under armed escort, their papers stamped with the code SB, Sonderbedarf, special requirement. Processing followed precise protocols upon arrival. Camp documentation recovered from Ravensbrück shows that women underwent a 3-stage induction: medical examination focusing on reproductive health, decontamination procedures involving caustic chemical cleansing, and orientation, a euphemism for systematic breaking through starvation and assault. The average processing period lasted 14 days, after which women received tattoos or identification numbers based on their designated facility. Their personal possessions, weighing an average of 7.2 kilograms per person according to warehouse records, were catalogued and stored or repurposed. Administrative efficiency characterized the entire operation. Meticulous records tracked each woman's productivity, health status, and resistance incidents. Camp administrators maintained color-coded charts recording daily activities, with red indicating medical quarantine, blue signifying active service, and black marking punishment periods. The SS Wirtschaftsverwaltungshauptamt, Economic and Administrative Main Office, calculated that each woman generated between 900 and 1,500 Reichsmarks monthly, with operational costs of 180 to 220 Reichsmarks for maintenance. The contrast between administrative precision and human suffering could not have been starker. While German record keepers documented service statistics with methodical attention, the women themselves endured calculated dehumanization. The systematic nature of this exploitation extended beyond individual camps, representing a transnational infrastructure of abuse. Military tribunal testimonies would later reveal that officers received precise instruction in the proper utilization of female auxiliaries through distributed manuals that outlined scheduled access, prohibited permanent injuries, and mandated specific sanitation procedures, all while maintaining complete denial of these women's humanity. The efficiency of this system would soon face American witnesses unprepared for its horrors. Daily life for comfort women followed rigid timetables enforced with mechanical precision. Réveillé sounded at 05:30 hours, allowing 15 minutes for basic hygiene before breakfast rations of 180 grams of bread and 200 milliliters of ersatz coffee. By 06:30, women underwent mandatory health checks measuring temperature, external symptoms, and weight. Any fever above 38.1 degrees Celsius resulting in quarantine. The functioning day began at 700 with the arrival of the first military personnel, typically officers with morning administrative duties seeking relaxation before their workday. Survivor testimonies documented at Nuremberg revealed that women received between 12 and 30 visitors daily, with precise intervals timed by guards. 15 minutes for enlisted men, 30 minutes for officers, and 45 minutes for senior command. Nutrition followed calculated insufficiency. The daily caloric intake averaged 1,232 calories, distributed across 3 meals. The morning bread ration, midday soup containing 120 grams of vegetables with occasional meat protein, typically 30 grams, and evening porridge measuring 250 grams. This diet maintained physical functionality while ensuring women lacked energy reserves necessary for escape attempts. Medical records from Camp Buchenwald's Women's Annex revealed average weight loss of 13 kilograms during the first 3 months of captivity, stabilizing thereafter at approximately 65% of healthy body weight. The women developed survival mechanisms within these brutal constraints. Korean survivors reported creating an informal language combining Japanese, Korean, and German terms to communicate across cultural barriers. Philippine women established a warning system using laundry arrangements to signal which guards were most violent. Polish women maintained hidden calendars marked with menstrual cycles to track time. These small resistances preserved fragments of autonomy within a system designed to eliminate human dignity entirely. Health consequences accumulated with mathematical certainty. Military medical reports documented that 73% contracted sexually transmitted infections at least once during captivity. Tuberculosis affected 28% of the population, with mortality rates reaching 14% among infected women. Dental deterioration progressed rapidly, with the average woman losing 6.7 teeth during 18 months of captivity. Psychological deterioration followed predictable patterns. Initial shock and resistance lasting 23 to 30 days, followed by apparent compliance masking internal dissociation, documented as acquiescence syndrome in post-liberation medical evaluations. The barracks themselves represented physical manifestations of systematic dehumanization. Each woman received a sleeping space measuring 180 centimeters by 70 centimeters, separated by fabric partitions providing visual but not auditory privacy. Hygiene facilities consisted of 1 water basin per 12 women, with soap rations of 100 grams monthly. Winter temperatures inside uninsulated structures typically registered between 4 to 7 degrees Celsius. Under these conditions, women forged bonds through whispered conversations, shared food portions, and mutual protection. They created hidden rituals, silent birthday recognitions, prayer circles conducted under cover of darkness, and small offerings of saved bread to newcomers. These human connections sustained hope, even as the war's progression increasingly isolated these facilities from both Axis support and Allied discovery. As German supply lines deteriorated throughout 1944, conditions worsened proportionally, with caloric provisions declining to 800 to 900 daily, making liberation increasingly urgent while seeming increasingly impossible. The first documented liberation of a comfort facility occurred on December 16, 1944, when elements of the U.S. 2nd Infantry Division discovered a secluded annex 3.2 kilometers from Krinkel, Belgium. Staff Sergeant James Hendricks, leading a reconnaissance patrol of 7 men, initially believed they had found standard female forced laborers. This misunderstanding persisted until a Philippine woman named Maria Santos managed to communicate in broken English that they were not workers, comfort only. Military police documentation shows initial confusion among American personnel, who categorized the women as civilian internees in preliminary reports. Within 48 hours, SHAF, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, had dispatched specialized medical units to address what they now recognized as a distinct category of victims. As Allied forces pushed eastward between January and May 1945, liberation followed a pattern reflecting the systematic placement of comfort stations. The 4th Armored Division uncovered 3 facilities within a 40-kilometer radius of Frankfurt between March 25 and 29, 1945. These discoveries prompted the formation of specialized medical intelligence teams combining female medical personnel, translators, and counterintelligence officers. By April 11, 1945, these integrated teams operated standard protocols. Medical personnel would enter first, followed by female military police when available, with male soldiers establishing perimeter security at minimum distances of 100 meters. Communication barriers presented immediate challenges. At Ohrdruf Camp, liberated April 4, 1945, the 89th Infantry Division located 37 Korean women who spoke no European languages. First Lieutenant Emily Richardson, a nurse with the 127th Evacuation Hospital, documented her initial interaction. The women recoiled when I approached in uniform. They believed American women in military dress must be a new form of captor. I removed my jacket and offered chocolate. The oldest woman touched it, smelled it, but refused to eat for 47 minutes. When she finally tasted it, the others followed. Similar scenes repeated across liberations: initial terror, cautious engagement, and eventual realization that American forces intended medical care rather than exploitation. Medical interventions followed precise protocols developed through trial and error. Initial medical assessment records from Camp Allendorf show that examining physicians discovered average body weights of 42.1 kilograms among adult women, with hemoglobin levels typically measuring 9.3 grams per deciliter. Normal, 12 to 15 grams per deciliter. The 56th Field Hospital implemented a standardized nutrition program beginning with liquid supplements of 500 calories daily, increasing by 300 calories every 3 days until reaching 2,400 daily calories by day 14. These protocols prevented refeeding syndrome while addressing severe nutritional deficiencies. American military supplies previously allocated to combat units were redirected to recovery efforts. Daily reports show single comfort facilities received daily rations equivalent to those intended for platoon-sized combat units. Documentation efforts began immediately, though with evolving understanding. Counterintelligence Corps officers initially classified materials related to comfort women under standard protocols for war crimes evidence. By late April 1945, Chef had established specialized evidence collection procedures specifically for sexual enslavement cases. Captain Robert Johnson of the Judge Advocate General's Office noted in an internal memorandum dated April 30th, 1945. These women represent a category of atrocity requiring distinct evidentiary approaches. Their testimony constitutes both personal trauma and systematic war crime. We must develop protocols that preserve evidence while preventing further traumatization. American military cameras captured these liberation moments, women receiving their first adequate meals, medical care, and dignity in years, their expressions transitioning from disbelief to cautious hope. Rehabilitation of comfort women represented unprecedented challenges for American military medical personnel. The 127th Evacuation Hospital established the first specialized recovery ward on May 8, 1945, with 120 beds dedicated exclusively to former comfort women. Medical records document that initial treatment protocols focused on 3 primary areas: infectious disease management, nutritional rehabilitation, and psychological stabilization. Penicillin, still relatively new to battlefield medicine, became essential in treating the 68% of women suffering from sexually transmitted infections. Laboratory records show that patients typically required 15 to 21 days of antibiotic therapy, with follow-up cultures conducted weekly until negative results appeared twice consecutively. Nutritional rehabilitation followed precise caloric progression. Patients began with 1,200 daily calories, primarily as liquid supplements enriched with vitamins A, B complex, C, and D, progressing to 1,800 calories by week 2 and 2,400 calories by week 4. Army dietitians recorded average weight gains of 0.8 kilograms weekly during the first 6 weeks of rehabilitation. Psychological approaches reflected emerging understanding of trauma. Captain Margaret Sullivan, chief psychiatric nurse at the 135th General Hospital, documented the development of specialized counseling techniques for comfort women. Her May 1945 report noted, "Standard approaches prove ineffective with these patients. We've developed a protocol emphasizing safety establishment, minimizing male presence, and utilizing female interpreters exclusively. Group sessions conducted by nationality show promising results. These early trauma interventions predated formal PTSD diagnosis by decades, but represented foundational work in treating extreme psychological trauma." Recovery statistics reveal gradual progress. Medical records indicate that after 30 days of specialized care, 42% of patients had established regular sleep patterns without sedation, compared to only 8% upon admission. Documentation efforts expanded significantly during rehabilitation. The War Crimes Investigation Team assigned specialized female investigators to interview survivors once medical personnel cleared them for questioning. These interviews typically lasted 90 to 120 minutes, recorded through female interpreters, and focused on establishing factual timelines rather than emotional narratives. Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Miller, heading documentation efforts at Displaced Persons Camp 37 near Frankfurt, established a pioneering approach combining medical, legal, and humanitarian elements. Her team photographed physical injuries, collected testimony, and preserved evidence while maintaining strict protocols to prevent re-traumatization. By August 1945, this team had processed 1,457 testimonies from women of 14 nationalities, creating the first comprehensive documentation of systematic sexual enslavement during wartime. Repatriation presented complex challenges, transcending standard displaced persons protocols. While European women typically integrated into existing repatriation systems, Asian comfort women faced unique obstacles. Military records show that by September 1945, approximately 738 Korean, 211 Chinese, and 189 Philippine women remained in specialized American facilities awaiting resolution of their cases. Transportation logistics alone proved daunting. The USS Comfort, originally designed as a medical evacuation vessel, was repurposed in October 1945 to transport 278 Asian comfort survivors from Bremerhaven to Manila, where further transportation connections could be arranged for Korean and Chinese women. The 3-week journey included continuing medical care, with 12 physicians and 40 nurses assigned specifically to these passengers. The intermediate housing system evolved from emergency accommodation to specialized recovery environments. By late 1945, the U.S. Army had established 7 dedicated recovery facilities for former comfort women, including specialized DP Camp 42 near Munich, housing 411 women from multiple nationalities. These facilities provided not merely shelter, but comprehensive rehabilitation programs. Educational initiatives focused initially on basic literacy. Records from DP Camp 42 show that 73% of residents had received minimal or no formal education before captivity. American teachers, primarily Women's Army Corps personnel with educational backgrounds, implemented daily classes in reading, writing, and basic mathematics. Vocational training followed, with programs in textile work, food preparation, and clerical skills. These educational efforts represented early recognition that rehabilitation required not merely physical recovery, but restoration of autonomy through skills development. Initial media coverage emerged cautiously. The first published account appeared in Stars and Stripes on May 12, 1945, describing in carefully worded language the discovery of women subjected to systematic abuse. Mainstream American publications followed with similarly circumspect reporting. The Chicago Tribune's June 3, 1945 article, "Special Victims of Nazi Brutality Found," avoided explicit descriptions while conveying the systematic nature of abuse. This measured coverage reflected both contemporary sensibilities and military concerns about protecting survivors' dignity. Nevertheless, these initial reports began the process of public acknowledgement that would eventually lead to broader historical recognition of wartime sexual enslavement as a distinct category of war crime. The post-war lives of comfort women survivors followed divergent trajectories shaped by nationality, community reception, and personal resilience. Long-term tracking studies, initiated by the International Refugee Organization in 1951 and continued through the World Health Organization until 1967, revealed stark statistical patterns. European survivors, particularly those from Western nations, achieved measurable reintegration. 73% reported stable housing within 5 years. 68% secured steady employment, and 41% eventually married. Asian survivors faced significantly different outcomes. Only 28% reported stable housing within the same period, 31% found consistent employment, and 19% entered marriage relationships. These disparities reflected both cultural differences in addressing sexual trauma and practical challenges of geographic displacement. Across all demographics, survivors displayed elevated rates of certain conditions. 43% experienced chronic depression, 57% reported recurring nightmares persisting decades after liberation, and 68% developed somatic manifestations, including chronic pain syndromes, particularly fibromyalgia, diagnosed in 36% of cases studied through 1967. The silence surrounding comfort women experiences extended for decades after liberation. Dr. Elizabeth Hartman, who served with the 127th Evacuation Hospital, documented this phenomenon in her groundbreaking 1972 study, Enforced Silence: The Aftermath of Systematic Sexual Trauma in War Victims. Her research revealed that 83% of European survivors never discussed their experiences with family members, while 91% of Asian survivors maintained complete silence even with intimate partners. This enforced silence began during immediate post-war repatriation. Military documentation shows that in multiple instances, repatriation officials advised women to begin anew by concealing their wartime experiences. A Philippine survivor interviewed in 1993 recalled specific instructions from American officials. "The lieutenant told me, 'Your family doesn't need to know everything. Tell them you worked in a factory.' I followed this advice for 47 years." Legal recognition developed through glacial processes spanning multiple decades. The Nuremberg trials included only 7 specific references to comfort women systems, representing 0.3% of total war crimes documentation, despite affecting thousands of victims. The Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal similarly marginalized these accounts. Meaningful legal proceedings emerged only after Kim Hak-sun's public testimony in 1991 broke decades of silence. This watershed moment, occurring 46 years after liberation, triggered 287 additional public testimonies within 5 years. The United Nations Commission on Human Rights formally recognized systematic sexual slavery as a war crime through Resolution 1996/80, drawing explicitly on comfort women testimonies. Compensation efforts followed divergent paths. German government programs eventually disbursed €37.8 million to 1,738 identified European victims, averaging €21,750 per survivor. Asian victims received significantly delayed recognition, with the Asian Women's Fund establishing compensation only in 1995, providing approximately $20,000 to each of 285 verified survivors, representing less than 7% of estimated Asian victims. Cultural memory evolved unevenly across affected nations. South Korea established the first Comfort Women Memorial in 1992, eventually developing 27 public monuments and 3 dedicated museums, preserving 2,744 artifacts and 412 recorded testimonies. European nations integrated comfort women experiences into broader Holocaust remembrance. The German National Memorial in Berlin added a specific comfort women section in 2018, featuring the names of 379 identified European victims. International remembrance initiatives expanded through UNESCO's Memory of the World Register, which in 2009 added 318 comfort women testimonies comprising 4,601 pages of documentation. Annual commemoration events now occur in 14 nations, though participation has steadily declined as the generation of direct survivors diminishes. Attendance records show 1,273 participants at events in 2000, declining to 341 by 2020. The multi-generational impact extends beyond survivors themselves. Psychological studies conducted among children of survivors identified specific inheritance patterns of trauma. Dr. James Hartwell's 2003 longitudinal study documented that 57% of survivors' children reported significant relationship difficulties, 43% experienced persistent anxiety disorders, and 38% demonstrated hypervigilance behaviors consistent with secondary trauma exposure. These findings contributed significantly to evolving understanding of intergenerational trauma transmission, establishing Comfort Women survivors and their families as a crucial research cohort in trauma studies. The reluctance to discuss experiences created distinctive family dynamics. Survivors' children reported sensing unspoken histories within family narratives, with 72% indicating awareness of maternal trauma despite absence of explicit discussion. The broader historical significance of Comfort Women experiences continues expanding through academic research, human rights frameworks, and international law. These cases established precedent for recognizing systematic sexual violence as a specific category of war crime rather than incidental battlefield conduct. United Nations Resolution 1820, passed in 2008, explicitly referenced Comfort Women experiences in establishing sexual violence as a tactic of war requiring specialized judicial response. The testimony of these survivors, emerging from initial disbelief at American liberation, ultimately transformed international understanding of wartime atrocities. Their experiences, documented first by shocked American liberators, continue reshaping legal, psychological, and historical frameworks, ensuring that systematic sexual enslavement during conflict can never again remain invisible within the broader narrative of war.